All right, for this next problem, it's very similar to the one that we did for problem number one. Instead of looking for the greatest common factor, we are looking for the least common multiple. Least common multiple is determined very similarly. Essentially, the least common multiple is going to be the smallest integer that contains both numbers as factors. Remember that a factor, and we're going to use that in creating a program, that's going to be a divisor. It's going to be a number that will divide evenly into another number. The key, and one of the things that should tip you off, is that you're going to see that dividing it evenly into each other is I can use integers, and with integers I've got the 5 different basic mathematical operators. The one that I have that's I typically don't use is going to be my remainder division, and that's one of the places where this is going to come in handy. For the least common multiple, it's important that you understand how to solve this problem by hand. To find the least common multiple of different numbers, for example, the least common multiple of 12 and 15, the prime factors of 12 are going to be 12 and 2, 2 and 3, um, and those are going to be the different factors. The prime factors of 15 are going to be 3 and 5. Those are the only two numbers besides 15 and 1 that I can multiply into each other. So the only prime factor that's in common between 12 and 15 is going to be 3. So that would be my least common multiple. Is going to be 12 times 15 divided by 3. That's going to be 180 divided by 3 is going to be equal to 60. And the least common multiple between those two is going to be 60. Those are going to be the only two numbers, or the smallest number that I can get, or I can multiply and divide those two numbers. 15 divided by 60 is going to be equal to 4, and I can do the similar division with 5 times 12 is going to be equal to 60. And so that's what I'm looking for. Comes in very handy when you're working with fractions like 4th, 5th grade. And so the things that you got to watch out for is sometimes you're going to have least common multiples of two numbers, say 9 and 11. The prime factors of 9 are going to be 3 and 3. That's the only two numbers that you can divide and get 0 divided by 9. And the prime factors of 11 is only going to be 1 and 11. So there are no prime factors in common between those two. So the least common multiple of 9 and 11 is going to be 9 times 11, which is going to be equal to 99. Using that logic, I'm going to come back over into my program for number 2. And I'm looking for the two different programs. In program number 1, we found the greatest common factor of 120 and 108 is going to be 12. And the least common multiple of 120 and 108 is going to be 1080. So enter number 1, enter number 2, 111 and 74. And so that's going to be another example of how you can test whether or not your program is going to go through there and works out. And so I would sit down there and break this out by hand. And so what I'm going to use this on this one right here is, once again, my remainder divisions. And I need to store a couple extra numbers since I'm computing both of these. I'm going to use my do while loop again. And I'm going to come back over and calculate my greatest common factor and my least common multiple. I'm going to do the remainder is equal to temporary 1 divided by, well, not divided by, but the remainder of temporary 2. That's going to be the remainder when I go through there and divide by temporary number 1. Temporary number 1 is going to be originally set to number 1, and temporary number 2 is going to be set to number 2. And I'm going to divide those two numbers, and I'm going to go through there and keep dividing those all the while the remainder is equal to 0. However, where my remainder no longer equals 0, it's going to go through there and kick back out. And so here is my solution onto this one right here. So you're just using a do while loop that was given to you, and it's just coming back over there and doing the if else. Honestly, the biggest problem that I saw with the majority of the problems that you guys were having was not being able to understand and work this out on paper. The first thing, and you will get credit on all of your problems if you can actually work through these things before you go through there and start trying to program.